Hey guys, coldbrew here. Welcome back to another video. This is gonna be a buff news video, alright? So we are getting a couple of buffs for 2 legendary champions this time around. I know it's not many, but this is what they give us, so we should at least be happy because they stopped buffing champions for quite a while and then now they've continued. So if we encourage it, maybe they continue on with more champion buffs. So one of them is actually a champion that I always thought would eventually get a buff. This one champion is used basically for one area in the game that even an uncommon champion is currently doing it at the same pace, and it doesn't really make sense for her to be that weak. But let's cover the first one, which is going to be a healer that we kind of use at the moment. I don't think anybody really sees any problem with this one. Is going to be Mina. Okay, if you ever used Mina before, then you know she currently has a flat heal, and then she can also apply a heal reduction on enemies, and then she has a conditional block debuffs buff on champions under increased defense buff, which is very interesting because she doesn't really provide a consistent source of increased defense on allies, so it doesn't make sense that the block debuffs would be under that condition. So what they're going ahead is obviously this. They are changing this condition as one of the changes that they're doing. But let's get started with everything that they are changing, because it's not just that. Let's see. Mending Ways is getting changed, which is her big heal, and this will be changing into healing this champion, the ally with the lowest HP, by 30% of this champion's max HP instead of the flat heal that she currently does, and then has a 75% chance to place a heal reduction debuff and a leech debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. So this is very interesting for many different areas. Leech is very nice. It's not as strong as lifesteal, but it's still useful. So having leech on enemies is pretty important, and they add the couple benefit. So when you have Coronar also on the same team, she will be unresistible in applying these debuffs. So that's pretty cool. You can definitely use both of them for many situations, and hopefully maybe your Cursed City Cintranos will be easier for you guys when pushing. Having that in mind, let's go into her next skills, which is her big heal, Beauty's Allure. So let's see what they changed. So she's still gonna heal by 40% of their max health and place block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns, but then the conditional is out, and then basically that is it. They didn't change anything else other than that, but they do remove the conditional, which I like. Block debuffs is not that usual to find, and having this with a 4-turn cooldown is useful because it's a 2-turn duration block debuffs. Obviously a 3-turn cooldown would be better, but I think mostly void champions have a 3-turn cooldown, so having that on a non-void, maybe they thought it would make her that strong, but I don't see how she would be made that strong, because she doesn't really have a clan boss kind of kit, right? She's got a heal, she will be applying leech. It's not crazy. Her kit is not crazy at all, and then the shield is pretty nice. And then finally they also changed her passive, so filling Terminator of all allies by 20% and healing them by 20% of this champion's max HP when this champion is killed. So it's a pretty good way to heal everybody in addition to filling the Terminator when she dies. So it's very interesting when you have her with Coronar, because there's the revive also in there. I would have preferred if her revive was in there already, and then with Coronar she would do something more that would have made her a little bit stronger than what she is. She's a strong support for sure, but definitely does not fill a role in arena even with her buff. I don't see her joining any arena teams. I just see her to be a little bit stronger than what she is right now. It's a very mild buff, but anyway, let's continue on. The next one, I just want to say, I've been using her since I ever got her. I used her for a little while, and then I thought, all right, there's no point in building her and actually running her. It's gonna be Queen Eva. All right, you do have Queen Eva. Well, you know where you're using her. You're using her mostly, I will say mostly, as a campaign farmer. Everywhere else she falls off a little bit. The reason that she works as a campaign farmer is you put her in the leader slot. Okay, critical rate in all battles is boosted by 19%, and then her skills, her A3 skill, which is an AoE, has an additional 15% chance of inflicting a critical hit. So you don't need to build her with a tons of critical rate for her to do her crits. And then she resets this when she kills the target. So basically she does A3, A3, A3 in campaign, And that is it. And she basically farms through and makes it easy for us to farm with a little less gear than other champions would need. Okay, everything else she has, like a single target hit with a heal reduction, it's very weak. And then double hit, enemy skill by this skill cannot be right. It's alright, but it's still very weak, very weak. So what are they doing now? They're coming in and saying, okay, we know that Queen Eva is not performing that well, so we are boosting her damage. So what are they doing with her A1 first? They're increasing damage. We don't know exactly how much they'll be doing that, but 70% chance to apply the heal reduction, and a block buffs debuff for 2 turns has an extra 15% chance of inflicting a critical hit. So this is pretty cool, applying the block buffs after you do the damage. That is pretty strong. I'm not sure why they mentioned, like, they give us a small brief, okay, when they give us these buffs. They say that this will be strong against Swift Parry. Well, nobody really uses Swift Parry anymore. Pliam, you should have known this. Maybe your records are not that well kept. But anyway, nobody really uses Swift Parry anymore on their damage dealers. There's so many different sets at the moment. But the block buffs will be applied after you do your damage. So I'm not sure how that interaction would work. Let's say you're fighting something like a Leorios. Leorios has a way to protect himself from dying, but that happens when he drops to 1% health. So if you do have a skill that applies an ignore of unkillable, then he just dies, okay? If you have something that applies a buff, like a block buffs debuff, I think he just dies again. So I'm not sure exactly if that's gonna work for her killing something like a Leorios. I would have to test it out when the time comes. It does make it interesting for her to be killing stuff with the A1. The heal reduction is very cool for her to apply that. But again, that's the buff plus the 15% extra chance to inflict a critical hit. They are adding this to every one of her skills, so every one of them will be strong as it is. So you build her with 85% crit rate if you want to, or even less if you don't really care and have her in the leader slot. Okay, her A2 also is getting a change. All right, this is pretty cool. Again, damage is boosted and ignores 50% of the target's defense, has an extra 15% chance of inflicting critical hit. I like this a lot. This change is very strong. Ignoring 50% of defense with a double hit attack means you can even hit targets such as Rotos. I know you're going to be hitting Spirit versus Magic, but again, that's something that you can have in your mind. And it also works against Ultimate Death Knight. So if you guys didn't know, if you have a multi-hit skill, you hit a target, one of the attacks will go on Ultimate Death Knight, the other will go to the target that you wanted. So this can be cool, especially if you have the firepower to take them down. So this is pretty interesting buff on her. I find. I just want to see on what the change will actually be on her multipliers. And then finally, her energy drain skill, so the big AoE that she does, just has a damage boost on this one. So this is strong already because it can definitely clear waves on brutal campaign. Hopefully this can actually clear the nightmare waves and make her the nightmare farmer. Although, from what I remember, in nightmare campaign, I don't think you can run anything other than ethos and have it to be consistent. Because let's say if you're fighting a Kaimar, your spirit, and you get that weak hit on him, that's gonna wreck up your run, right? So that won't be a crit. You'll have to kill him. I guess if you can make her to be this fast as him with even less gear, that would be interesting and would be powerful. But of course you need very, very strong gear, which I have on ethos. So you would need very similar gear, but more heavy on attack percent and crit damage, because you don't need all that crit rate on her. And these are the changes, guys. Just 2 champions have been changed and buffed. I will say that I prefer these kind of changes coming in on champions that we don't use, but I dislike that we don't see them more often on more epic champions in addition to the legendaries. They don't touch the epics at all. They don't touch the rares at all. I know we have a ton of champions in the game. We even have mythicals now, which are just insane, but it makes sense for Plarium to have a look at some of the more underutilized epics and see, okay, how can we make Bushi a little bit better? All right, so we see him a little bit more often in some of the teams. In Curse City, you see him already, right? You might see him already being used, but how do they make some of these epics a little bit more stronger? I want to see that. I don't want to just see the void epics being the MVPs in this game, which is currently the truth, right? So that's it, guys. Just 2 champions buffed. What do you think of the changes? Let me know down below your thoughts. Thank you all again, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.